there were a bunch. I took 12 pages of notes during this movie, and this is something that this is an issue that's bothered me for a long time. And Dawkins talks about it in his latest book quite a bit too. This indoctrination of children.
Yeah.
And he and I pretty much see eye to eye.
Oh, fabulous timing, didn't you think?
Yeah.
Dawkins' book just came out, where the indoctrination of children thing is a major issue, and here's this movie.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There were plenty of things in the movie though that I just had to shake my head at because and I there were times when I laughed during the movie, although many of those I felt guilty for because I was laughing at something because it was absurd, and yet the absurdity of it, to witness a little kid actually believing it and buying into it and knowing it, that was a little saddening. But they showed clips of them homeschooling, and between the homeschooling and what they were teaching at the camp, I mean, there were things like science doesn't really prove anything, and global warming is a myth, and the Earth is 6,000 years old.
Abject
and
lie
Galileo,
after lie.
Galileo was right to give up his scientific beliefs for God.
Where did that come from?
At which point I said, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he had to.
But he didn't actually give up his scientific beliefs.
He denounced him.
Well, I mean,
He denounced him to save his life.
At Sword Point.
Yeah.
I noticed how the global warming issue was introduced in that homeschooling class, too, right? It was, this is a big political issue, little Johnny, so you need to be prepared to fight against this.
Yeah, you got to be on the right side.
It wasn't presented as, here is a claim, and the issue is whether the claim is accurate or not. It was presented first as a political football.
Right. Well, the actual question from the textbook didn't read as what you're talking about.
But this is what the mom said.
No. What the question was global warming, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
What is the flaw in this global warming claim? And of course, he spits off immediately that the temperature's only risen 0.6 degrees, and whatever. Yeah. And there's no frame of reference there. That's not a logical rebuttal. That's nothing against. But the question was framed right from the beginning as, this is wrong, tell me why.
Right, it's a loaded question.
Parrot the answer that we've told you.
That too.
But it's
sick. And I asked later, is there any standards that homeschoolers have to meet in Texas, at least, and apparently there's
some states have standards, some don't.
It's like a basic knowledge test. I think they have to take
or something,
like twice during their entire school career or something. I don't know.
This is what homeschooling is all about, though. The homeschooling movement.
Yeah.
There are some people who legitimately are concerned about their children getting a better education. Some. The vast majority of it, according to the film, 75% of homeschooled children are fundamentalist Christians.
Mm-hmm. So we can pretty much figure what they're teaching.
I have heard figures higher than that, but that is high enough to be scary and to make the point. That is, we want to remove our children from the general population so that we can indoctrinate them in a very specific way.
Right, and they don't get exposed to different ideas.
One of the big indoctrinations during the camp was this idea that, and quoted by the kids, America is supposed to be God's nation.
Right.
And that's what they're feeding. They right down to bringing in a cardboard cutout of President Bush for them to pray over in order to support him.
That's creepy.
They had this life-size figure of
cardboard
George Bush, and they all said, we want you to pray over him now. And they were like...
reaching their hands out to touch the cardboard.
Yeah. Also, and just looking at the notes that I made, when we're talking about this complete dismissal of science, this whole idea that we know the truth, we don't need to think about it, was echoed by the pastor at the Colorado Springs Church. It's in the Bible,
and
it's true, we know it.
Is not
I've got it on another page, but
anyway.
Ted.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Hagee?
Yeah,
something like that.
No, that's somebody else.
I've got it. I'll look it up in a minute.
He is the same asshat who chewed out Richard Dawkins in the first episode of the God. The
Root of all evil.
Root of all evil.
But anyway, this knocking of science went on through the whole thing, right down to you were mentioning the guy who brought in the little the little plastic fetuses that were way too developed for the weeks that he was showing them.
Right.
But what he said to the kids, and it was just, it's like, I know this was, like, it could be off the cuff, but I have a feeling it was rehearsed, because he's talking to the kids, and he's like, and we don't, the people think we come from protoplasm, whatever that is.
Whatever that is.
And just shrugs it all off as whatever that sciencey stuff is. But looky here, here's a little baby plastic, fetus.
Yeah.
And well, we know where they are on science when they go around their studio blessing the microphones.
Oh, yeah.
That was the first big shot.
And the frickin', what was it, the
PowerPoint presentation.
The PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
They're casting magic spells
Yeah.
to control their stuff.
Talking to Satan about how we know, Satan, how you like to interfere with our PowerPoint presentation. So we rebuke you, Satan. That kind of
seriously.
We cast thee out, blue screen of death.
This isn't a joke. This isn't a. They're serious.
Yeah. They're like primitive savages living amongst us. It's amazing.
There was one other point.
Stone
I don't know.
People give them technology.
I don't know how much more we want to say about the movie and everything that went on, but there was one other point that I made last night while we were standing around talking. The pastor, and I'm going to have to look up his name, Ted Haggard.
Haggard.
I have it all written down. Don't have to, trust me. I got most of the movie transcribed, I think. He, after he mentioned that, he doesn't have to think because it's written down in the Bible. Levi, the little kid with the ponytail mullet that needs to be chopped off with a quickness.
Oh yeah.
Who was preaching at the camp, went up to him to talk to him about, hey, well, I'm a preacher too, and he asks him, do you think people enjoy your sermons because you're a kid or because of the content? And he answered, well, I don't know. And Haggard's thing was essentially, use your cute kid thing until you're 30. Then you'll have good content. And to me, this is a complete admission by the preacher that it's all bullshit. Because
earlier,
earlier
the kid had been writing his sermon, and he was, I guess, doing a voiceover off the camera and saying, when I write, it's not even like it's me writing. It's like God is taking control of my hand. And
I can feel it in my arm, yeah.
And Ted Haggard just comes along and says, use your cuteness until you have any good content.
Right. If it was God writing the sermons, or God delivering the sermons through them, then the content would be there automatically.
It just tells me right off the bat, he slipped, in my opinion, because I'm sitting there as a former Christian going, I know what this kid's answer should be, and I know what this preacher's response should be about how wonderful it is that God is working through you to deliver your sermon. And instead, the kid doesn't know, and the preacher comes back with the just keep on faking it, I guess, until you develop good content. Rather than God's going to give you good content, or God's already given you good content, he just flat out admits without realizing it that it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
And this is the guy who has meetings with President Bush every other Monday.
Yeah.
Not that any of them are, I don't mean to imply that there is some, preacher out there with a real truth, but this guy is as fake can be, and was throwing out corny jokes and preaching to the camera and tossing out smug little comments. And
the jokes were ugly.
It was as fake as you could get.
I don't remember.
He was just a mean
jokes.
bastard.
Yeah.
For those of you who married somebody 30 years older than you, I hope they die so you can get the money.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Boy, to me, that was like a lead balloon, but the whole audience went, woohoo!
It's because he has this policy of a 10-year dating rule where you shouldn't be dating anybody 10 years more or less than yourself.
Oh, is that what that was about?
Yeah, and it's not
I didn't
unusual.
Get the joke.